Hey, can everyone hear us? Is the music for that coming through? Okay, so I think our connections are all set up. We're just gonna wait a couple more minutes. And several others registered on Zoom. Started in a couple minutes. Okay, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us this morning. We are going to record this session, so it'll be available to others who can't join here or online at this time. We are focusing today on our theme throughout the year for Community of Christ in Michigan on Courageously Challenge. And part of that is challenging political, cultural, and religious trends that are contrary to God. And today we're focusing on issues surrounding poverty and how those impact our communities. So our first presentation is about Open Table. Some of you may have heard of our pilots with that several years ago in Michigan, but we're excited to learn about it again as it's grown and improved, and what we can do to launch it here through Community of Christ and partner with other faith communities that are already doing it in Michigan. So I'm pleased to welcome Terry Coons as the owner and principal of PAC and a consultant with Open Table. PAC has contracted for the last 17 years with government agencies and faith-based and community organizations to develop and manage programs and projects that improve communities. Terry has served on county, state, and national committees addressing family and community issues, and has been a private consultant to government, faith-based, and community organizations. A pastor since 1998, Terry has worked to nurture collaboration between government agencies, churches, and other community service providers. He currently serves as the senior pastor of Fellowship Baptist Church in St. Clair County, Michigan. So thank you for joining us, Terry. We look forward to hearing from you about Open Table.
Well, thank you so much, Dan. Can everyone hear me okay? Okay, wonderful, good. Let me know if throughout the presentation, if you're having any barriers as far as hearing or seeing anything that I'm trying to present. Yeah, just so thankful to Dan for extending this invitation. And I'm thankful to you guys and your congregations. Your open table story in Michigan actually predates my own. When I first got involved with Open Table back in, I want to say 2015, I was contracting with Saginaw County Community Mental Health Agency. They had hired me knowing that I was a pastor of a church in Saginaw, no longer at that church. I'm now in St. Clair County pastoring a church. But knowing that I was a pastor, they hired me to create and then run and manage a therapeutic youth mentoring program. And so we operated that program for a little over 4 years, worked with about 100 kids in the city of Saginaw. And it was just a wonderful experience. But knowing that I was a pastor, they also asked me to look at the Open Table. The Open Table was created within the faith community, originally solely for the faith community to utilize. It's since, and we'll talk about this a little as we go, but it's expanded beyond that now into many other sectors other than the faith community. But they wanted me to take a look at it and to see if it was something that community mental health should partner with. Well, that was my introduction into Open Table, is that we began to utilize it in the city of Saginaw, and it was amazing. We had several good years of wonderful partnership between churches. If you're familiar with the city of Saginaw, you know there's a river that goes right through the middle of the city. And that river is more than just a geographical boundary. It really does split our city in half. And but what we found was that churches of all different denominations, all different ethnicities, sizes, socioeconomic levels, partnered together in order to do this project to help people. And the project that we were involved in, and I'm not 100% sure about this, but I think it might even be the same one that Communities of Christ was doing years ago. We were working with young adults aging out of the foster care system. And we were able for a time in the city of Saginaw to provide an open table to any young adult who had graduated from the foster care system. And that was really pretty amazing, because if you know anything about the outcomes of those young people, a lot of times kids graduate out of foster care and they have nothing. They have no support. And so often, very sadly, they fall into our jail system, prison system, or just live a life of poverty after that. So we were really happy about that season of life. But from what I understand, Communities of Christ was really the first group to latch on to the Open Table even before that. And so I just applaud you guys for what you're doing around our state. And I applaud all you wonderful people for giving up an hour on a Saturday morning. I mean, I don't know what it's like in where you're at in Michigan, but here in St. Clair County, it is a gorgeous day outside. So thank you for your generosity. I'm going to try to value your time here. I think the best thing that I can do to start this off, and I'm going to share my screen with you here. Now be patient with me. I'm an old man trying to run technology. I'm going to show you a 17-minute video that I believe really illustrates and outlines what Open Table is. You'll hear the origin story, and you'll see how the model operates. So it's a little bit longer of a video, but the information is really valuable. And I think after we watch this, I'll just highlight a few things, and then I can answer any questions that people have. So let me get this going. If you're having any problems seeing or hearing, let me know. Is that okay? Is everybody?
Welcome to Open Table, the proprietary.
The sound is a little strange. Did you click share sound when you went into the screen share, or are you using your mic to share the sound?
I'm probably using my mic again. Let's see. Let me back out of that. Okay, so I'm hitting, sounds like we have a tech expert on the call here. I'm hitting share screen.
Yeah, and then in the bottom left corner, there should be like a checkbox that says share computer
Bingo.
sound.
You just
And then-
taught me something so important that I will use in the future.
Well, good. We'll both learn something today. And then you can even mute yourself and it will still share the sound.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I'm so glad I did this call. Thank you so much.
You're very
Okay,
welcome.
here we go.
The Open Table model trains community members and organizations to engage in long-term supportive relationships and create access to the social capital that empowers people with complex needs to have the better lives they envision for themselves and their children.
Hi, my name is John Katov, and I'm the founder and CEO of Open Table. This is a picture of Ernie and me. Through our relationship, I hope you will find the story of the Open Table movement. In 2005, Ernie introduced himself to me at a local shelter where I volunteered. As our friendship deepened, Ernie shared his plan for moving forward. We each develop our own human potential because others invest in us through relationship. Ernie did not need access to another program. He needed access to me. We connected to who and what we knew, and Ernie put it into action. That simple design became the foundation of Open Table. Ernie renewed something in me that I had forgotten, that my purpose was to live for others. I thought I was the one sent to rescue Ernie. Instead, I realized that Ernie was sent to rescue me. This is a recent picture of Ernie and me hanging out. We've continued our relationship since 2005. When we are in relationship with each other, everyone lives their best life. People in your community are waiting to move forward toward their best lives for themselves and their children. They just need you. A while back, I was asked to share why Open Table has transformational outcomes. Here is the most important part of what I've learned. This is an invitation to live our purpose, not to send our stuff, and that's okay, not only to send ourselves, but to send everything that we've learned, every skill we have, everybody that we know, and invite them and ourselves to co-invest in the development of a human being. Relational assets are easy to understand. It's your ability to be in relationship with somebody else, to give to them, and to receive back. And then combining that with what you've learned, the skills you have, and who you're connected to. You got to have them both combined. Relationship can help people develop, but unless they have social capital, they can't use it to go create their own lives. They can't use it to go support their own plans. Without relationship, social capital is a transaction. You give it once, somebody uses it once. Communities cannot invest relationship and social capital without an effective delivery system. Social capital without relationship is a one-time thing. Relationships without social capital is having a desire and support to create a better life without the tools that you need to do it. Know-how, skills, connections to others. The same is true for communities. The power of relationship in a community can't be realized without the co-investment of all of the social capital in the community. We're here to share about how to invest relational assets in the human development of others. We don't know everything yet. We're going to give you what we've learned, and we invite you to join this movement so that we can all perfect a way to give what we have and who we are and what we know and who we know to others who can use it to lift up our communities so that everybody can have a better.
The encounter between Ernie and John evolved into the developmental journey that is now the nonprofit organization, Open Table. This evidence-informed model is now recognized and practiced around the country in more than 30 states and has been proven to be an effective approach for transforming people and communities of all kinds. Its foundations as a community practice model are rooted in a theory of change, ongoing research, and training based on many years of experience since 2005. The theory of change is formed by a set of never-changing pillars that define the open table model and create concrete outcomes. Open table research demonstrates that practicing the model with fidelity results in transformational outcomes for all. The first pillar is relationship, which means developing authentic, long-term, sustained relationship that is mutual and reciprocal. The second pillar, a shared purpose, is the understanding that everyone around the table is present to support the plans of the individual or family being served to live into the lives they envision for themselves and their children. The third pillar is a safe space, a place free of judgment, assumptions, preconceived notions, and polarizing opinions. It is essential that it is okay to make mistakes, and there must be room for forgiveness. The fourth pillar is transformation and reconciliation that develops through the invitation to be in authentic relationship with others who may have very different life experiences than your own, and the opportunity this creates to be for each other and thus reconciled to each other. The fifth and final pillar is local determination and ownership that informs unique aspects of how the model is applied, particular to the population being served and the culture of the community. This is what a table looks like. Notice that the friend is at the head of the table, and this is intentional to indicate that the friend is leading the process and has full voice and choice to define their goals, guide, and direct the focus of the table. The inside director is the person that works with the friend to support them in planning the weekly agenda and facilitating the meetings. The outside director helps make connections to resources in the community outside the table. The other chairs around the table represent life domains and work to overcome potential barriers the friend may face in accomplishing their visions for a better life. There is flexibility in which chairs are filled, depending on the needs of the friend. The volunteers who fill these roles are generalists, and the chair position is not based on a person's profession. All table members connect to their social networks to support the friend in reaching their goals. The commitment for table members is 1 hour per week for formal meetings and some additional time for intentional relationship building outside of meetings and working together with the friend to complete action steps. It is okay to occasionally miss meetings. Life happens to you and the friend. While not required, table members make donations to support the cost of training. Open table training is derived from an extensive evidence base, multiple studies, and a wealth of implementation experience since 2005. Training for tables is done together with the entire team and is usually scheduled weekly for 6 weeks. Training sessions can be conducted virtually and are 90 to 120 minutes. Once the table is trained and the referral is identified, the table will begin the launch meetings, a series of 3 meetings meant to celebrate the beginning of relationship with the friend, learn their story, and more about their hopes and dreams. After this, weekly meetings commence. Weekly meetings are 1 hour and can be done virtually, in person, or a combination of both. The after plan defines what ongoing relationship might look like after the year of the table is complete. Open Table University is the robust online platform that hosts the Open Table training system, tools, and materials that support implementation. Within Open Table University, leaders will find a handbook. Table members will access their e-textbook along with the video training modules. And local agencies, Open Table calls them referral partners, will find the resources and training to refer a friend to your table. Referrals to tables are determined by each community's local initiative. Agencies or service providers that are a part of the initiative receive specialized training in the referral process to tables. This includes an established assessment of a potential referral's readiness that helps determine if the candidate is ready for the commitment. It's important to know the impact you can make by being part of a table. Research and university studies demonstrate life transformation in friends served by tables. A longitudinal study completed on the core table model demonstrates that 95% of friends remain in relationship with their table members for 2 years or more. This means that tables have at least 3 years of impact. Additionally, 95% of friends also report they are optimistic about their future ability to be self-supported and would like to serve on a table for someone else. 91% say they feel like they are part of a new family. 85% have a better job or are in college or technical school when the table concludes. 82% have a positive view of the future. And finally, 73% have an enhanced self-confidence. Jessica is a young woman who aged out of the foster care system, and in the following video, she shares about her journey with her table. You can also view this video again on our website, www.theopentable.org.
The reason that I was placed in the foster care system was my mother was very abusive and alcoholic, and we were unstable. I never had my own pillow. And I will never forget the moment that I was able to lay in my own bed and have my own pillow. And I remember hugging my pillow and just thinking about how, yes, I missed my mom, but how amazing it was to have my own pillow. In my 8 years in foster care, I lived in 15 different foster homes. I became numb to relationships. It wasn't nothing to me to lose someone. It was just normal. I was like, okay, well, I guess they're just over, and I would move on to the next home or to the next friend. I was lost when I aged out of the foster care system. I was homeless. I didn't have nowhere to call home. I was tired of that. I was tired of always feeling lost. I then got into a relationship that was just very abusive and mentally unhealthy. I was really struggling in the unhealthy relationship that I was in, and I was losing myself. I was able to find out about Open Table through the BCFS Center, which is a transitional center that helps former foster youth transition into adulthood and do all the things that they need to do to be successful. During the first month of being on the Open Table program, I found out I was pregnant. I was in the process of getting evicted. My car broke down on me. I didn't have a job, but that's when my Open Table helped me get where I needed to be. We had 4 goals. The first was to get my car. The second was to get a driver's license. The third was to help me find a stable home for me and my son, and to get me a job that was gonna allow me to provide for my son. At first, being on the Open Table program, it was very uncomfortable for me. Growing up in the foster care system, I was never cared for. And I was finally around 7 people that wanted to care for me, and that was abnormal for me. In the beginning of my pregnancy, I knew that I wasn't gonna have anybody to call. I knew that I was gonna go to the hospital and I was gonna be alone. But I had someone to call. I had someone to be there for me, and that was Teresa Turner. She's always there for me. She is like a mother to me, and I never thought I would have a mother figure in my life. So currently I work at the San Antonio Area Foundation. I love my job because my passion is to help people and to change the world and to give people hope. And that's what my job does. My future goals would have to be finishing school for communications and psychology. But my overall dream is to open up my own nonprofit for foster youth girls who have children in the foster care system. I want to see young girls smile because there's hope. Looking at my son and looking at who I was when I started the Open Table, they helped me grow because they never abandoned me. I know what love is now. I would have never had this without my Open Table.
It's important to know that the table receives support throughout the year. In addition to tools in the textbook that provide assistance for navigating table meetings, there is also a refresher training each quarter and a team that is accessible for support as needed. During the last quarter of the year, each table member determines together with the friend what they hope ongoing relationship will look like based on each person's capacity and the common shared interests they have identified with the friend. Finally, the friend and table members can find ways to share about their journey together to help expand the Open Table opportunity for others. Now, you might have a few more questions to help you make a final decision about joining a table. You can reconnect with the Open Table team member who sent you the link to this webinar, or send an email to the entire team at info@theopentable.org. We are deeply grateful for the time you have given to view this introductory webinar and consider if this might be the right time in your life to be a part of a table. The experience will teach you how to use your social capital through supportive relationships to empower someone with complex needs as they move toward the better life they envision for themselves.
Okay, we'll go ahead and stop that right there. I hope that was helpful as far as an overview and just learning a little bit about how Open Table started and how it operates. I'm going to share my screen again. I just want to highlight just a few things that you saw in the video, maybe go into a bit more detail with those. All right, so one thing that you noticed, I'm sure, on the video, and I love Jessica's story. It really illustrates what we do so well. Jessica, after she was served by her table, went on to have a career and is often a speaker for Open Table for us on just the value that the table had for her. But you notice that on the video that they talked about the core table model, and this is really how we began as an organization with this model. This has been changed and adapted through the years, and we're actually much more flexible now as far as the number of chairs around the table, the number of people serving someone. Still, typically, if it's a family unit, we suggest that the table should maybe have 10 or 11 volunteers if you're serving an entire family. If you're serving a single adult, whether that be, like in Jessica's case, a youth aging off foster care, or even a single mom or something of that nature, then we typically would opt for a smaller table, 5 or 6 volunteers. Again, take note that everyone around the table is a generalist. We're not looking for the the person sitting in the finance chair, for instance, to be an accountant. If they are, that's fine, that's wonderful, but that's not a requirement at all. The most important thing that happens around the table and in the context of this year that people serve as volunteers is that they get into relationship with the person. And that is really the foundation. I'm currently serving on a table. It's a virtual table. We developed the virtual model, of course, during the pandemic. And we still utilize that from time to time, and people have the freedom to operate their tables that way if they choose. But I am serving on a table for a man who was wrongfully accused and went to prison for 10 years for a crime he didn't commit. He lives in southern Missouri. I live in Michigan. Three of the other table members live in Montana. One lives in Phoenix. But together we do a call every single week on Wednesday at noon, and we get together and we talk. And it's really been very eye-opening for me to be on this table, because so often with Open Table, we talk about the transactions that happen in the context of relationship. So in other words, the person might need better housing, or they might need more reliable transportation, or they might want to go back to school or to find better employment. Those are all incredibly valuable things. Can I tell you what we've done for the last 8 to 9 months on this table? Is we listen to him, we talk, we provide support, encouragement, and he loves it. He loves having a group of people that will, just because in prison for 10 years, he didn't have that, people that he could trust to really share with. And so we provide him with a lot of emotional support. We started off with all these tangible goals, but as the year has moved on, he decided what he really valued from us and loved having from us was just the friendship and the relationship. So it's really interesting to me how often these things develop. But that might be your experience too. If you serve on a table, it might just be someone who really desires relationship and has a need for friends. The commitment, as you see on the screen, is 1 hour weekly. It's a 1 hour weekly meeting. Of course, you're more than welcome to do things in addition with that. My wife served on a table years ago in Saginaw, and she and the person they were serving, they would go to movies together. They would go shopping together. We would have her over for dinner. Our friendship with her became so strong, and there was so much trust there that we actually had her house sit for us once when we went away for a few days. She stayed in our home and she watched our dog. And the only problem I had was that when I came back, my dog didn't want to have anything to do with me. My dog wanted to go with Lori, the friend. So, but anyway, my dog learned to like me again, but it took a little bit. But anyway, so the relationship is just so key. But that initial commitment is for 1 hour a week, and that's for a 1 year process. And again, relationship is the foundation of everything. When you sign up, if you're led to do this and you decide you want to get involved with Open Table, both your organization, so your church, will be trained. There'll be a leadership handbook that you'll receive. You will get a textbook as a volunteer that has everything you need to know in it. And then all of the training is on video modules, and it's meant to be done as a group. So you would be trained along with other people that you're serving on with the table, because the most valuable thing that happens during the training is the interaction. You discuss the issues that are being talked about, you give your thoughts on it, the other people on the table give their thoughts, and you all learn and grow from each other. Once the table has been trained, there's an organizational meeting where everybody decides what chairs they're going to be at and how they're going to start. Your referral is identified, and that could be a referral that comes from within your churches. You might do what we call self-referrals, where you have people in the congregation already that you would like to serve in this manner, or you might partner with another organization in the community and receive a referral from them. That's completely up to you how you proceed with that. We're so excited about a lot of the outcomes of what's been happening in Open Table, and these are just 3 very fun ones. 95% of people who have been served by tables are still in relationship with at least one table member up to 2 years afterwards. And some of these relationships go much, much longer than that. You heard John's story in the very beginning of the video. John and Ernie still text each other every single day, twice a day. They say good morning to each other and they say good night to each other. 18 years later, it has led into a very long-standing natural friendship. 85% of our clients had a better job or were in college or technical school when the table concluded. 85%. Government agencies, I've contracted with all of them in the state of Michigan. I've contracted with the Department of Corrections, with DHHS, with community mental health, you name it. I've contracted with them, and I can tell you that no government agency can deliver these kind of statistics. And I think it's because we see ourselves first and foremost as a ministry to people. And then 95% have reported an optimism about their future ability to be self-supporting. And that is so key, because people in chronic poverty, or people who have had a lot of barriers, whether they be mental health or socioeconomic barriers in their lives, so often the self-image is the main issue. And if they can overcome that, and they can feel better about themselves and better about the future, then they will have much better outcomes. So those are just a few of the things that I wanted to highlight from the video. But at this point, thank you so much for your attention. I can take any questions that people might have. Any questions at all?
Maybe I missed it, but how long does the training last?
Oh, no, you didn't miss it. Thank you. No, that's a very good question. So there are 5 training modules. When your organization licenses itself with Open Table, and I think that might have already happened. Dan, you can correct me on that, or update everybody on that if you like. But once the organization is licensed, you have access to what we call Open Table University, and all of the training is on that website. It's all yours at that point. And there are 5 modules. If you were to just watch them straight through without stopping to do the discussion questions and the activities, which we certainly wouldn't encourage that. That's not really what it's meant to do, but they're probably about an hour and 10 minutes, an hour to 20 minutes each. If you're going to really make the most of that, you're probably looking at a 2-hour block for each training. So I would recommend, when you schedule training, to think in terms of 5 weeks, once a week. So a once a week meeting. I always suggest that you do it when you think your table is then going to meet, because then people are in the habit of that time slot, right? So if your table is going to meet with the person you're serving, I'll just make something up. If you're going to meet on Tuesday nights at 7 o'clock, schedule your training for Tuesday night, 7 o'clock. It'll get everybody into the habit of setting aside that time slot. So you want to set 5 weeks, a 2-hour time slot, 1 time a week. Any other questions?
There was a question in the chat.
I have a question.
Yeah.
In terms of, I know every situation is different, every congregation is different, every table probably is different. Is there an ideal minimum number of participants required to make this a success in a particular congregation? So that, no 1 or 2 or 3 people feel overworked?
Right. Oh, that's a wonderful question. We recommend, again, if it's like a family that you're serving with a couple of parents and some kids, we want to encourage you towards a little bit larger of a table, maybe 10 or 11 volunteers. If it's a single adult, we encourage 5 to 6 volunteers. But I will say we have been experimenting with other numbers within that. So, I don't know that you would have to feel bound by that, but that's still our recommendation, is 5 to 6 for a single adult and 10 or 11 for a family unit.
Yes, thank you. I know that, if we do this, we would want it to be successful. So I'm just trying to get an idea of good numbers that we need. So
that's perfect. Yeah, no, it's a great question. And what that allows for is life happens, right? You're not going to be able to make every single meeting. yeah, you'll have a vacation or something will come up, at home, and you won't be able to be there every week, but there will be other people that can be there that time. So
Terry,
yes.
it mentioned in the video that there was some type of a cost that the table members were invited to help with. Could you talk about that a little?
Yeah, we've actually changed that significantly over the last few years. First of all, I believe, and don't quote me on this, this would be more of a Dan discussion to have, but I think your license cost is already taken care of by the Communities of Christ. So I don't think there's any cost there, but we ask volunteers to consider a personal donation, but that could be, I don't even know. I think we might even have changed it. I know at one point someone had to enter something when you're signing up as a volunteer on the website, that you had to enter some amount in there. And we told people, just put a penny in. If that's what you can do, that's fine. I think that might have even been updated where it's completely optional now. And it used to be that each volunteer paid $120 to serve on the table. What we realized is that leaves some people out of the mix where that would just be a true financial hardship for, and we want them to still be able to serve.
Yeah, so
Thank you.
Share a little bit about the financing right now. Community of Christ in Michigan has paid $1,000 for the license fee to cover a year to launch up to 5 tables throughout the state. So we're trying to do this sort of as a pilot process. So we've used some of the budget money that we have as a mission center. So all of you have contributed to that. And the idea is that 5 areas, not necessarily 5 specific congregations, but 5 areas, we would launch a table, hopefully this fall or into the winter, whenever that timeline worked. And so it could be congregations joining together. So, Dave from Big Rapids asked that question of how many people, maybe it's 3 or 4 from Big Rapids and 3 or 4 from Greenville or something that makes sense. Or there's 8 people who want to get, 10 people want to get together in Grand Rapids, but they all come from different congregations. That would be fine. Our hope is we get lots of people trying it out this year, sharing the story, explaining the training, so that next year individual congregations or areas would then pay that license fee for the year. So that license fee is what we would pay to access the training and the support and all the tools that come with it, helping with the referrals. And there's just a lot that goes behind the scenes that we really valued that when we did it before. So we're piloting it with this grant, so to speak, this first year. And after we get done talking here, I'd love to hear if there are congregations that are thinking they'd like to take the lead or organize one in your area, and we'll get to work on that in the coming weeks.
Thanks,
and then
Dan.
we would encourage the volunteers to give that $10 a month, $120 a year if they can, but like you said, it's not a requirement. Eric, could you talk a little bit about more detail about selecting the friend? I know you kind of mentioned that could be a congregational referral, or it could be through an agency that has caseworkers who kind of look at their list and see who might. Is there still a process where the friend goes through the kind of pre-test? Is there any screening that would disqualify them, or what's that?
Those are. Oh, thanks, Dan. Yeah, it has changed fairly significantly since the last time you guys were involved, where those things are completely optional now. They used to be required. We still have those tools, and they're there for you to use if you like. What we found when we were contracting with a lot of government agencies from 2015 up through 2020 is that those things were very prohibitive to the goals of the government agencies. And so we made them optional as an organization, but we can still make them available to you if that's the way you'd like to go. Yeah, I think the 2 paradigms to keep in mind is that you are completely free to refer someone that you're already in relationship relationship with. If you have someone in your congregation or your community that you feel like is a good candidate and it would be very willing to be served by this process, by all means, use them as a referral. I mean, you already have the relationship piece, again, is primary. So if you have that established relationship, you're already several steps ahead. However, if you would like to work with a local social services agency, perhaps Michigan Youth Opportunities Initiative, again, students coming out of the foster care system, that would be wonderful. You could work with your local parole or probation office if you want to work with someone coming out of jail or prison. There are lots of options, and we would be very willing to help with that whole process.
Terry, this is Dave. I have another question.
Sure.
In your experience, if a congregation does this or a group does this and somebody is selected, is it generally okay or is it a bad idea? Maybe, for example, if it's a family member of someone in the congregation or somebody that people know in the group, is that helpful or is that a minefield? Do you have any comments there?
Yeah, no, Dave, you're asking good questions. No, I think so. I would probably steer people away from having family members on the table. I don't know that necessarily would be good, but I think if there is established relationship, it's better. It can, because again, sometimes it takes tables months to become truly effective because it takes that long to establish trust with the individual. And so if there's already trust there because they know the people on the table, I think the process is going to be that much more effective in my experience. But I would be careful of relationships that are perhaps too close, right? I'll speak for myself here. We can be hardest on our own families, right? We love them. We know we're not going anywhere, but also we can be the most brutal on our own family members. And so I don't know that having a family member serve on a table would be necessarily wise.
Okay, thank you, Terry. I appreciate it.
You bet, Dave. Any other questions? Okay, well, Dan, I will turn it back to you. Do you have anything else for me today or anything else that you want me to address?
I don't think so. If there are no other questions, I think we're all set. We're gonna chat amongst ourselves here now.
Okay.
Brief if there are people with ideas or thoughts on where we should organize, but yeah, I think thank you so much for sharing all that and answering our questions.
Well, no, you're very welcome. And Dan, if you'd like to, please feel free to share out my open table email with everyone. That would be completely fine. And if anyone has further questions, don't hesitate to shoot me an email.
Okay, thank you, Terry.
All right, have a great day, everyone. Nice to meet you all.
Okay, so we've got some time. Come on, the camera, you can't see me here, but you can hear me hopefully, that we want to chat with any of you. If you've got an idea of an area in Michigan that you think we'd have enough volunteers, or if you have thoughts about the population we might want to look at. We could do multiple tables that all serve the same population and look for an agency that could make those recommendations around the state, or we could let congregations areas pick their own interests or see if they already have people in mind in relationships. So any thoughts or questions within Community of Christ on how this might work for us?
Yeah, we are part of a nonprofit that one of the goals of the nonprofit is to help transition juveniles who have been incarcerated and getting them back into the system. Do you think this might be a good program for them?
Are they over 18? Or
Yes.
Yeah. So I think, yes, I think so. I know our initial tables that we did years ago were with young adults aging out of foster care. Some of them had criminal justice things in the past. None of them were directly in juvenile justice at the time, but I know they work with young adults and they work with people coming out of incarceration, so I'll see why you couldn't do that. Somebody in both.
Would it be possible to get a copy of his slides that he used for presentation in our congregations?
Yeah, I can ask him that. We did record this, I believe, right, Linda, and we're still there, so we've got this available too, you could play,
Okay.
but I can ask him for the slides if those are available. We've got he gave me a flyer page that you can take, but I'll be able to- and I haven't explored their website to see what exactly is on there. I know they've done videos and things, but.
Dan, I was really pleased to hear that they've kind of improved how they're doing things as far as incorporating technology, which I feel like was kind of a barrier that we had talked about before. And I know for, excuse me, congregations that are doing more stuff online, this could be really nice even for fully online, non-geographic congregations or new expressions that want to find a way to be missional but don't have a building. I was really encouraged by that.
Yeah, thanks. I think that is a key takeaway for everyone who heard about it in the past. They had a lot more structure, detail, requirements, and they've taken a lot of that away as they've learned. So it does sound like there's a lot more flexibility. I know we've had snowbirds who say, well, I'd be on a table, but I'm gone 3 months out of the year. We can make that work now. People have, are engaging in congregations over Zoom, like Linda said. They could be involved even if they're not local. So I think there are a lot more opportunities. There's a lot more flexibility. We can use agencies, and I think there's a lot of reasons to think about that because they bring with them tools and access we don't already have. But if we know someone, that doesn't mean we have to go through an agency anymore like we used to either. We don't have disqualifiers like substance abuse and psychological tests that used to be there. So there's definitely a lot more flexibility. And I think that is something to take away here. Is the core idea of building the relationships, which we also have some community of Christ videos from our experiences in our first 3 tables that I can pass along to share in congregations. I think those will get you the idea of it along with what Terry shared, and know that it's kind of up to you to make it fit in your community. And it doesn't have to be all community of Christ members. We're kind of thinking this first year because we're paying for only 3 to 5 tables across the state that it would be mostly community of Christ members, just so that we're getting to know it. But the hope is, and what we did in Lansing when we did it before was we started with that first experience, and then those volunteers shared it, brought in other faith communities, other people in the community who were on future tables.
Clearly, this is a tool for carrying out Christ's mission in the congregations. I like it.
Yeah, that's exactly why we're here. This is one of our goals, is to get a tool for each mission initiative, and this is the best one we know of for the Abolish Poverty and Suffering one on an interpersonal level. There are lots of system things we could talk about, but as far as meeting someone who needs that relational capital, as John talked about, or social capital, this gives a structure to it. It's still awkward, don't get me wrong. You meet a random person. If you don't have that relationship with them, like he said, it can take a few months to really build trust and figure this out. Why do you want to give up an hour of your time? What's in it for you? And particularly people who have lived through all these systems know that usually there's something there's a box they need to check. There's a way they need to behave. There's things they need to say. So it takes a while to get past that and really just know people. Ideally, that's what we're doing every day, every week through our ministry, but it's not easy, right? And this gives it kind of a name and a model and some reputation behind it for ourselves, along with the volunteer or the friends. I think you'll find, like John said, it'll change you in the congregation more than it changes that one person. Because some of our experiences on the table were trying to fill out some of the paperwork for a young adult to qualify, to get the scholarship they were allowed to get their laptop. And here's a group of 8 professionals with degrees, and we're saying, what box do you check, and what does that mean, and do you have that piece of it? And they're expecting, a 19-year-old kid with no storage or anything to do that. And so we started to see how hard that is, or you gotta go to this office on this side of town to get that paper, to go to the other office on the other side of the town. Well, they don't have a car. How do you? It'd be hard enough for us to figure that out, let alone. So you start to see the barriers and the silos in your community. And hopefully that leads to other conversations outside the table to say, why can't we do this better? Or what can we do to help connect the dots that even the agencies don't see? So that's where I think it turns it from a one-on-one thing to a bigger thing if we let it really impact our congregations. I'll also say there are lots of stories we had from our 3 tables in Lansing where not only did we have the 8 people meeting every week, but once something came up, oh, the individual needs a dresser or a desk, we could take that back to the congregation on Sunday and everybody could hear that story, be part of it. They don't have to meet every week for an hour to help us figure out each piece when it comes up, you know. We're looking for a close to be a job interview in this field, or somebody to recommend this kind of program at a community college. So then we tapped into our much broader network beyond the 8 people who did the weekly relationship piece. And we were fortunate our young adults came to our congregation and then kind of shared out their story in different ways. So that was nice for the congregation as well to kind of take that on, even if they weren't there every week.
Hey, Dan. We have a comment from Carol Dudley, and I think it's a clarification. She's wondering if a congregation was interested in hosting an open table. Are we understanding correctly that not all of the participants would necessarily have to be, you know, members of the congregation or actively involved in that particular congregation?
Correct. Yeah, we're quite flexible this year because the Mission Center has paid the license and we're kind of doing an umbrella project to get started. I met with Terry and John Katoff a few months ago and they approved that kind of process. We wanted to sort of grease the wheels and just make it easy. So ideally, we probably would have one congregation or at least one leader or team take on the organizing part, setting up the training and getting the volunteers, but those volunteers could come from multiple congregations, Community of Christ or not, or non-religious as well. So what I'm kind of hoping for from our perspective is you think about it, share it with your congregations, people in your area. And over the next couple of weeks, we're going to have a pastor meeting online the 2nd week in September. I shared the idea with pastors back in May, just that we were going to have this training. We thought sooner, but here we are. And we kind of want to get a concept of, we'd like to have a table in Northern Michigan. We'd like to have a table in Lansing. We'd like to have a table in the Bay Area, the Thumb, you know, kind of a region. Or if your congregation is, we want to do one, we're ready to go. That'd be great too. If we get more than 5, that'd be wonderful. We'll figure that out. But we're hoping to get 5 areas or congregations that are excited about it this fall. And then we'll get you in touch with Terry and the right steps to go through training. And hopefully those 5 areas will successfully launch a table. And by this time next year, you'll all have stories to share and we'll multiply that out. And at that point, it'd be up to your areas to then, you know, fund another year of the license and see what it looks like. And we will still have grants available to help with that, but it probably won't be the full license cost going forward next year.
Dan, this is Dave again. I have another question.
Yeah.
I don't know how many congregations are still doing Wednesday evening activities, but it occurred to me as I was listening, and I don't want this to sound self-serving for us as Community of Christ, but would it be beneficial to have a table on a Wednesday evening so that people are used to gathering on a Wednesday if they're already doing that? Just a thought. I just thought I'd throw that out there and see what you think.
I think that could make a lot of sense if it works for the friend, you know, and the people interested. That'd be great.
And is there an age limit on a friend?
Larita asked if there's an age limit on the friend. Typically, it would be 18 or older, just so that we're working with an adult.
Okay, thank you.
Now, saying that does bring up, if we have a family, as I mentioned, or a single parent. In most cases, we'd like all of the table members to be youth workers, just because this is a vulnerable population, you know, they are, whatever their situation, they've had some things in their life. So that would be ideal. If we're working with one adult, that wouldn't be a requirement, but hopefully everyone, if they're not already registered, could get registered. If we are working with a person or family that does have children, then we would definitely need everyone on that table to be youth workers, assuming they're gonna interact with that child.
Thank you.
Which is a good segue to our afternoon sessions, because we're gonna talk about child protection training and getting that done. So that is a good question, Larry, to that. The table, the friend should be an adult, because we don't want to be working with a minor for a variety of reasons. And they would not be able to make all their own legal decisions yet anyhow. But there could very well be youth involved in the table.
Dan, would you mind stating a little bit more visible in front of the camera? There's a request for you to. Yeah, we want to see your whole face right there.
Later. There it is.
That's great. Yeah, and now we can see more of our friends in person too.
And you mentioned something about all of the members of the table should be youth workers. What about those people that are not Community of Christ? Do they have to go through Community of Christ youth worker program?
It would be ideal, yeah, I don't think it would be an absolute requirement in this case, because we wouldn't be. Unless we were offering childcare to that family, like during the meeting or something, in that case, everyone who's directly interacting with the child would need to be a youth worker. But in this case, we're not assuming responsibility for the kids, I don't think. You know, they might be at the meeting, our youth workers would be there supervising it, so it'd be similar to like in a camp setting when we have guests come in to do a class or a situation. As long as we have our youth workers monitoring that, I think that could be okay.
And the only reason I ask is because I'm thinking of the nonprofit that we belong to that might be interested in something like this. And I mean, they're teachers and they're professionals, but they are not Community of Christ members.
Yeah, and that's a good question, gets into some of the details we'll talk about in the administrator training this afternoon and kind of touch on that in the regular child protection training. When we're offering the event, like a Sunday school or a vacation Bible school or camp, we gotta ensure everybody there is. But in this case, it's more of a community thing that we would want our people to have that. It's very possible they would already have their own
Some type of it,
similar
yeah.
thing. And because they're not coming to our event, we wouldn't require them to get trained for us. Now, we would require that at our youth camp. We can't take the youth worker process for our events, but again, unless we're doing a planned youth component or taking their kids virtually in some way, I don't think we'd have to require that.
I know it happens rarely, but if there were an emancipated youth, would they be able to become part of this as a program?
Probably, so you're saying somebody under 17 has legal rights to make all their own decisions. I think it could happen. I know we've had the situation that comes to mind is when we were operating Journey House, we would have some students who would get there as freshmen, that's be 17 at that time. They weren't emancipated necessarily, but they get the right parental permissions to kind of make their own decisions, which they would need at campus anyhow. So I think as long as they had the legal paperwork making them an adult, then the age wouldn't matter much. But in that case, again, because of vulnerability, that would be one where we would want everyone to be a worker, to be aware of all the issues. Okay, well, are there any other questions or ideas you want to share? Well, what we'd like to do now is transition into a break period. So I want to kind of give an overview of the rest of our morning, so you know what's coming up. And we're gonna sing a hymn here before we go to break, just kind of talk about our overall theme. But our plan is we're going to reconvene at 10:25. So as soon as we get done this session, there'll be time to use the restrooms, grab a coffee or drink, whatever you need. At 10:25.